The station hung in space like a crystal palace, bigger than any city on Earth. Taemin stood at the window of the transport shuttle and watched it grow larger. He did not smile. He did not frown. His face showed nothing at all. "Are you nervous?" Jiwoo asked from the seat beside him. She wore the formal robes of Earth's diplomatic corps, all white and gold. Her hands were folded in her lap, but Taemin could see the tension in her shoulders. "No," Taemin said. Jiwoo looked at him. Really looked at him. Taemin was not tall. Not by human standards and certainly not by alien ones. He was average height, average build. His face carried scars, thin white lines that crossed his cheek and jaw. His hands were calloused. His uniform was simple. Gray and black, with no decorations at all. "They're going to underestimate you," Jiwoo said quietly. "Good," Taemin replied. The shuttle docked with a soft thump. HFY was waiting for them in the airlock. She was military intelligence, sharp-eyed and quick-minded. She handed Jiwoo a data tablet without greeting. "The council is ready," HFY said. "They've been laughing for the past hour." "Laughing?" Jiwoo asked. "At us?" "At him." HFY nodded toward Taemin. "They think we're joking. They think we sent a sacrifice to amuse them." Taemin said nothing. He picked up his small bag and waited. The council chamber was vast. The ceiling stretched up so high that Taemin could not see the top. Around the circular room sat representatives from 40 different species. Some looked like insects, all chitinous armor and clicking mandibles. Some looked like living rocks. Some were clouds of gas, held together by force fields. And some looked like nightmares. Vorath sat in the highest seat. He was reptilian, covered in dark green scales that looked harder than steel. His eyes were yellow, with vertical slits. When he saw the human delegation enter, his mouth opened in what might have been a smile. His teeth were like knives, so Vorath's voice boomed through the chamber. It was translated into human language by devices in their ears. "Earth sends its champion." The council chamber filled with sounds, clicking, hissing, booming laughter. Some of the aliens leaned forward to see better. Others turned away. Already bored, Jiwoo stepped forward. "The human species accepts the council's challenge. We present Taemin as our representative in the trials of ascension." More laughter. A creature that looked like a massive centipede curled and uncurled in its seat. That soft thing? It has no armor, no claws, no venom. Look at it. It would die in minutes. Vorath raised one clawed hand. The chamber fell silent. "Ambassador Jiwoo, are you certain? The trials are not meant for fragile species. Many have entered. Most have died. We would not want to eliminate humanity's finest warrior in the first trial." The way he said it made clear that was exactly what he wanted. Jiwoo's voice remained steady. "We are certain Taemin will compete. Very well." Vorath leaned back. "But let us be clear. The trials of ascension are sacred. They test strength, survival, and combat ability. They determine which species deserve to stand as equals in this council. Humanity has been classified as a servant species. Weak. Dependent. If your champion fails, Earth will accept permanent subjugation. Is this understood?" "It is understood," Jiwoo said. "And if he somehow survives," another alien spoke up. This one looked like living metal. Its voice like grinding gears. "If he completes the trials, humanity will be granted full council membership. But this will not happen. Look at him." All eyes turned to Taemin. He stood quietly, hands at his sides. He met Vorath's gaze without blinking. "He doesn't even carry weapons," the metal alien continued. "He wears no armor. His skin is soft. He is small. What can he possibly do?" Vorath's smile widened. "I agree to allow this human into the trials. Not because I believe he will succeed, but because his failure will teach his species humility. And because, he paused, it will be entertaining to watch. The council voted. It was unanimous. Taemin was accepted into the Trials of Ascension. As the session ended, Ji-woo and Hae-won led Taemin to the preparation chambers. The hallways were filled with other species, warriors from across the galaxy. They stared at the human. Some pointed. Some made sounds that the translators couldn't interpret but that were clearly mocking. A massive creature blocked their path. It stood 3 meters tall, covered in thick fur and muscle. Its eyes were red. Human, it growled. I am Brekkor. I won the last trials. I have killed 17 opponents. When we meet in the arena, I will add you to that count. Taemin looked up at the creature. Okay, he said simply. Brekkor seemed confused by this response. It growled again and walked away. In the private chamber, Hae-won sealed the door and turned to Taemin. They're all talking about you on the alien networks. They're making jokes, taking bets on how fast you'll die. Let them, Taemin said. He set down his bag and began to stretch, slow and methodical. Ji-woo watched him. Taemin, you've reviewed the trial records? Yes. You understand what you're facing? Yes. And you're confident? For the first time, something flickered in Taemin's eyes. Not fear, not doubt. Something older, something that had been bred into humanity over millions of years. Ji-woo, he said quietly. They look at me and see weakness. They see soft skin and no claws. They see prey. There. And what do you see? Ji-woo asked. Taemin finished his stretch and stood straight. I see creatures who evolved on easy worlds, who grew armor because they never learned to think, who got strong because they never needed to be smart. He looked at both women. They've never met a human before. They don't know what we are. What are we? Taemin's expression didn't change, but his voice carried absolute certainty. Persistence predators. We're the species that tracked prey for days, until it collapsed from exhaustion. We're the species that turned every disadvantage into a weapon. We're the species that conquered an entire planet. Not because we were the strongest, but because we refused to quit. He picked up a simple combat knife from his bag. It was plain steel. Nothing special. They think letting me fight is their gift to humanity, a chance to prove ourselves. He slid the knife into his belt. They're wrong. The moment they agreed to let me into these trials, they lost. Ji-woo felt a chill run down her spine. Not from fear of Taemin, but from the sudden realization of what was about to happen. The council had made a mistake. A terrible mistake. The first trial starts tomorrow, Hae-won said. It's survival against apex predators. Creatures that have killed every competitor they've faced. Taemin nodded. Good. Let them send their predators. Let them watch what happens when a predator meets something that evolved to hunt predators. Outside the chamber, the alien species continued to laugh and make their bets. They prepared to watch the weak human die. They prepared for entertainment. None of them understood. Not yet. They had judged Taemin by his appearance, by his lack of natural weapons, by his soft skin and average size. That was their first blunder. And tomorrow, when the trials began, they would start to understand the price of underestimating a human being. They would start to learn what millions of years of evolution had created. They would start to see what happened when you put a human in a corner and told him to fight his way out. Taemin slept that night, calm and dreamless. The council slept too, confident and amused. Only one of them would wake up to their expectations being met. The arena world was called Kiros 9. It was a planet designed for death. Taemin stood on the transport platform and looked at the landscape. Red sand stretched in every direction. Sharp rocks jutted from the ground like broken teeth. The air was thin and hot, hard to breathe. Kyung-soo checked the equipment one last time. He was former Special Forces, built like a wall, with hands that could crush steel. But those hands were gentle as he adjusted the monitor on Taemin's wrist. "This tracks your vitals," he said. "Heart rate, blood oxygen, body temperature. Daun will be watching from the ship." "I know," Taemin said. "The other competitors got full armor and weapons," Kyung-soo continued. "Powered exoskeletons, energy shields, plasma rifles. You refused all of it." "I did." "Why?" Taemin looked at the older man. "Because armor makes you slow. Weapons make you confident. I need to be fast and careful." Kyung-soo nodded slowly. He understood. "Good hunting," he said, using the old military phrase. Taemin stepped off the platform onto the red sand. Behind him, the transport lifted away. He was alone. In orbit above the planet, the council watched on massive screens. Vorath leaned forward in his seat. "The first trial begins. Our human competitor has chosen to enter with only basic clothing and a simple blade. How? Primitive." The other council members made sounds of agreement. On 40 different screens, 40 different competitors prepared for the trial. All of them carried advanced weapons. All of them wore protective armor. "Release the predators," Vorath commanded. Across Kairos 9, creatures emerged from underground dens. They were called Razorbacks, native to a world with 6 times Earth's gravity. Each one was 4 meters long, covered in bony plates, with jaws that could bite through steel. They hunted in packs. They never stopped once they caught a scent. On the human observation ship, Daun watched her monitors with growing concern. His heart rate is elevated, but steady. Temperature rising, but manageable. "But Taemin, if you can hear me, 3 Razorbacks are approaching from the north." Taemin heard her voice through the small earpiece. He didn't respond. Instead, he knelt and touched the sand, still warm from the day's heat. He looked at the sky, 2 suns setting, darkness coming fast. He smelled the air, dry, dusty, but underneath, something else. Something alive. The first Razorback came around a rock formation, moving fast. It saw Taemin and roared. The sound was like thunder. It charged. Taemin ran. On the council screens, the aliens leaned forward. "Look, it flees." I knew humans were cowards, but Taemin wasn't running away. He was running along the rock formations, keeping obstacles between himself and the predator. The Razorback was fast, but it was heavy. It couldn't turn quickly. When it crashed into a rock trying to follow him, Taemin changed direction. The second and third Razorbacks joined the chase. "This is suicide," one council member said. 3 against 1. He should have taken the weapons. Vorath said nothing. He watched carefully. Something about the humans' movement bothered him. It was too controlled, too purposeful. Taemin ran for 6 hours. He didn't sprint. He kept a steady pace that he could maintain for a very long time. This was what humans were built for. Not speed, like a cheetah. Not strength like a bear. But the ability to keep moving when everything else had to stop. The Razorbacks were built for quick kills. Short bursts of explosive speed. But as the hours passed, they began to slow. Their thick armor trapped heat. Their massive muscles burned through energy. They had evolved on a high-gravity world where prey couldn't run far. They had never met a persistence predator before. By hour 8, one Razorback collapsed. It lay in the sand, sides heaving, tongue hanging out. It was not dead, just completely exhausted. By hour 10, the second one stopped chasing. It stood on shaking legs and watched the human run past, unable to continue. The third Razorback was the strongest. It chased for 12 hours. But finally, as the twin suns rose again, it too fell. It crashed into the sand and did not rise. Taemin stopped running. His breathing was hard but controlled. Sweat covered his skin, cooling him through evaporation. His legs ached, but they would carry him still. He walked back to where the third razorback lay. The creature's eyes followed him, filled with confusion. It had never failed to catch prey before. Taemin knelt beside it. He did not kill it. Instead, he took his water container and poured some into the sand near the creature's mouth. "You fought well," he said quietly. Then he stood and walked away. In the council chamber, there was complete silence. "What?" Vorath finally spoke. "What did we just witness?" "It ran down the predators," the metal alien said, voice full of disbelief. "It exhausted them. I've never seen such a thing." "Impossible," another said. "Those are razorbacks. They're apex predators. Nothing outruns them." "It didn't outrun them," a quieter voice observed. This came from a small alien that looked like a floating jellyfish. "It outlasted them." "There's a difference," the trial continued. Each competitor faced their predators. Some won with weapons. Some won with armor. Many died. But none won the way Taemin had. The second trial came 3 days later. It was combat. One-on-one matches against warriors from other species. Taemin's first opponent was a member of Brekor's species. 4 arms, each holding a blade. Thick exoskeleton armor. Compound eyes that could see in all directions. The fight began in a circular arena. The 4-armed warrior charged immediately. All blades spinning. Taemin stepped aside. Not just dodging, but observing. He watched how the warrior moved. Which arm led? Which eyes focused where? Humans were pattern recognition machines. Give them enough data, and they would find the pattern. The warrior attacked again. Again, Taemin evaded. The crowd of aliens watching began to make sounds of impatience. "Fight!" Brekor roared from the viewing area. "Stop running, coward." But Taemin wasn't running. He was learning. On his third attack, the warrior made a mistake. A small one. His upper right arm extended slightly farther than the others. A tiny imbalance. Taemin moved. He caught that extended arm and used the warrior's own momentum to throw him off balance. In the second of confusion, Taemin struck. Not with strength, but with precision. 3 quick strikes to nerve clusters he'd identified while observing. The warrior's right side went numb. 2 arms stopped working. The fight lasted 3 more minutes. The warrior was strong and brave. But Taemin had turned a 4-armed opponent into a 2-armed one. He had found the weakness and exploited it. When the warrior fell, unable to continue, Taemin offered his hand to help him up. The warrior stared at it in confusion, then took it. "You fought with honor," Taemin said. Back in the observation area, Brekor was no longer laughing. Taemin won 5 combat matches that day, each one differently. Against a heavily armored opponent, he fought for 3 hours, slowly exploiting weak points in the armor joints. Against a fast opponent, he used the arena itself, forcing his enemy to waste energy while he conserved his own. Against an opponent who could camouflage, he threw sand in the air and tracked the disturbances. Every fight taught him something. Every victory came from adaptation. Haewon sat in the intelligence center, watching data stream in. "I'm intercepting council communications," she told Ji-woo over the secure channel. "They're concerned," using words like unpredictable and dangerous. "Good," Ji-woo replied. "Let them worry. There's more. Some council members are discussing changing the trial rules, making them harder, specifically targeting Taemin. Ever. Can they do that? Technically, no. The trials are sacred, but they're scared enough that they might try anyway." On Kairos 9, Taemin finished his 6th fight. This one against Tis, the armored behemoth. Tis had skin like titanium and strength that could crush stone, but he was slow to turn and slower to think. Taemin spent the entire fight behind Tis, no matter how the creature spun. It was exhausting, but it worked. Finally, Tis became so dizzy from spinning that he fell. He could not get back up under his own weight. Taemin stood over him, breathing hard. "Yield," he said. Thys looked up at the small, soft creature that had defeated him without landing a single blow. "I yield," he said quietly. The council chamber erupted in argument. Half the members were impressed. Half were frightened. All of them were confused. "It learns too quickly," Voreth said. "Each fight it adapts, changes, finds new ways to win." "That's impossible," another council member insisted. "Combat instincts can't develop that fast. It must be using some kind of technology." "We've scanned it," Haewon's voice came through suddenly on the council's communication system. She had hacked their frequency. Taemin carries no technology except a monitoring device and a steel knife. "Everything you're seeing is just a human being doing what humans do. We adapt. We learn. We overcome." "Silence," Voreth roared. "You have no right to speak in this chamber." "No," Haewon agreed. "But you gave us the right to compete. And we're winning. Deal with it." The transmission cut off. That night, Taemin rested in the competitor's camp. Other warriors gave him space now. They had stopped laughing. Some looked at him with respect. Others with fear. Tomorrow would bring new trials. Harder ones. More dangerous. Taemin cleaned his knife and checked his body for injuries. Bruises, yes. Cuts, a few. But nothing serious. His body was already healing. Already preparing for tomorrow. He thought about Voreth's expression when the Razorbacks had collapsed. The confusion. The dawning realization. They were starting to understand. Not fully. Not yet. But they were learning what it meant to face a human in combat. Not a creature with claws or armor or venom, but a creature with something far more dangerous. A mind that never stopped learning, and a body that refused to quit. Arena World 4 was different from the others. The sky was green from toxic gases. The ground bubbled with chemicals that could dissolve metal. Radiation levels were high enough to kill most species within hours. It was a nightmare environment, designed to test survival in the worst possible conditions. Young-Ho watched from Earth's xenobiology lab, his screens filled with data about the planet. "The radiation alone should be lethal," he said into the communication channel. "And the temperature swings from -40 to +60 degrees Celsius. How is he supposed to survive this?" "The same way humans always survive," Subin replied from her tactical station. She was young but brilliant. Her mind always 3 steps ahead. "He'll adapt." On Arena World 4, Taemin emerged from the landing platform. He wore a basic environmental suit that provided air and some protection. But nothing like the advanced systems the other competitors had. They had full hazard armor with radiation shielding and temperature control. They looked like walking tanks. Taemin looked like a man in simple clothes. The trial was straightforward. Survive for 72 hours. Many competitors chose to stay near the safe zones, using their technology to wait out the time. But safe zones gave minimal points. To score higher, to prove superiority, one had to venture into the hostile areas. Taemin walked directly into the worst zone on the map. "His vitals are spiking," Daun reported from the medical station. "Heart rate up. Core temperature rising. Radiation exposure increasing. Should we pull him out?" Kyung-soo asked. "No," Jiwoo said firmly. In the toxic wastes, Taemin's body began doing what human bodies had done for millions of years. It adapted. Sweat poured from his skin, cooling him when the temperature soared. When it dropped, he shivered, generating heat through muscle movement. His breathing adjusted to the thin, strange atmosphere. His cells began repairing radiation damage almost as fast as it occurred. Young-Ho stared at his readings. "This is incredible. His body is... It's just handling it. Do you understand what I'm seeing? Humans evolved to survive in extreme conditions. Deserts, tundra, jungles, mountains. Our bodies are built to adapt to different environments. But I never imagined that we could survive this," Subin finished. That we could survive this so well, Young-ho corrected. The council watched their screens in growing discomfort. Other competitors were struggling. One had already died when his armor failed. Another retreated to a safe zone after 6 hours. But the human kept walking through the worst areas, like he was taking a stroll through a park. It's not possible, Vorath insisted. No unarmored being can withstand that radiation. Apparently humans can, the jellyfish-like alien observed. Look at the data. His cellular repair mechanisms are extraordinary, and his body's ability to regulate temperature through perspiration. We don't have anything like that. Perspiration? Another council member asked. Sweating, the jellyfish explained. The human secretes water through its skin, which evaporates and cools the body. It's primitive, but remarkably effective. Most species had to evolve armor or thick skin to protect from heat. Humans evolved a cooling system instead. Vorath's claws dug into his armrest. What else can they do? Young-ho could have answered that question. Humans could survive in gravity from 0.8 to 2.5 times Earth normal without serious problems. They could adapt to altitudes from sea level to extreme heights. They could eat an incredible variety of foods. They could heal from injuries that would kill other species. They could go days without water, weeks without food, because humans didn't evolve on an easy world. Earth was a death world by galactic standards. It had ice ages and heat waves. It had predators everywhere. It had diseases and parasites and disasters. And humanity had survived all of it, not by becoming the strongest or the fastest, but by becoming the most adaptable. On hour 48 of the trial, something new happened. A creature emerged from beneath the toxic ground. It was native to Arena World 4, a thing of crystalline scales and acid blood. It was not supposed to be part of the trial, but it didn't care about rules. It attacked Tae-min. Move! Da-un shouted into the comm, even though she knew he couldn't dodge much in the environmental suit. But Tae-min had already seen it. He rolled aside as acid sprayed where he'd been standing. The creature was fast, adapted to this terrible environment. Its claws could cut through steel. Tae-min did something unexpected. He ran toward more dangerous ground, where toxic pools bubbled and steam rose in clouds. The creature followed, confident in its home territory. That was its mistake. Tae-min led it into a narrow canyon, where chemical steam rose thick and hot. The creature's crystalline scales began to crack from the thermal stress. It slowed, confused. This was its world. Why was it suffering? Because Tae-min had observed. He'd noticed that the creature avoided the steam vents. He'd deduced that rapid temperature changes damaged its crystalline structure, and he'd used that knowledge as a weapon. He didn't kill the creature. Instead, he escaped while it was disoriented, leaving it to retreat back to its den. Did you see that? Subin breathed. He weaponized the environment itself. He's a tactical genius, Kyung-soo said with something like pride. The 72 hours ended. Tae-min emerged from Arena World, 4 tired, radiation burned, but alive. He scored the highest points of any competitor, not because he had the best equipment, but because he'd gone into the worst areas and survived them. The 4th trial was different. It was pure combat, but against something the council considered unbeatable. Kormoth. Kormoth was an energy-based life form. It could phase through solid matter. Weapons passed through it harmlessly. It could solidify only when it chose to attack, making itself vulnerable for just a fraction of a second. Every competitor who had faced a Kormoth had lost. Most had died. The council members who had been worried were now calculating. The human cannot defeat Kormoth, one said. This is where his luck runs out. It hasn't been luck, the jellyfish alien said quietly. But I agree. There's no strategy that works against a creature you cannot touch. Tae-min stood in the arena, a circular platform surrounded by energy barriers. Across from him, Kormoth materialized. It looked like living lightning, crackling and shifting, never quite solid. The fight began. Kormoth attacked, phasing through the air and solidifying its form just long enough to strike. Taemin dodged, but barely. The energy creature was fast. Subin watched from her tactical station, her mind racing. There has to be a pattern. It has to solidify to attack. That's the vulnerability. But it's only solid for a microsecond. Even Taemin can't react that fast. But Taemin wasn't trying to react. He was trying to predict. He watched Kormoth's attacks. Each one had a tell, a slight shimmer in the energy before it solidified. It was tiny, almost invisible. But humans had evolved to spot patterns, to see the small details that meant the difference between life and death. 10 minutes into the fight, Taemin began to dodge before Kormoth attacked. He was reading the tells, anticipating the strikes. Kormoth became frustrated. It attacked faster, more aggressively. That was when Taemin noticed something else. The arena floor was metal, and each time Kormoth solidified to attack, it created a small electromagnetic pulse. The metal vibrated slightly. Taemin began to focus not on Kormoth, but on the floor beneath his feet. He could feel the vibrations through his boots. Humans had excellent tactile senses. They could feel tiny changes in texture, temperature, pressure. He started dodging with his eyes closed, relying entirely on the feel of the arena floor. The council chamber erupted in chaos. How is it doing that? It's predicting attacks it cannot see. This is impossible. But it wasn't impossible. It was just human. Kormoth's attacks became wilder, more desperate. And wild attacks were predictable attacks. Taemin waited for his moment. When Kormoth lunged in rage, fully committed to a strike, Taemin moved. Not away, but into the attack. He grabbed one of the energy barriers at the arena's edge and yanked it down. The barrier was designed to keep combatants in. It was also powerfully magnetic. When Kormoth solidified to attack, it found itself between Taemin and the magnetic field. The energy creature tried to phase, but the magnetic interference disrupted its ability. For 3 full seconds, it was trapped in solid form. Taemin struck once, precisely, with his steel knife at the creature's core structure. Kormoth collapsed, its energy dissipating. It was not dead, but defeated, unable to continue. Silence filled the council chamber. Total, absolute silence. Finally, Vorath spoke. His voice was barely a whisper. It weaponized the arena itself. It used our own technology against the opponent. Not just that, the jellyfish alien said. It learned to read attacks through floor vibrations. It fought with eyes closed against an energy being. I've never seen such adaptation. What have we allowed into our trials? Another council member asked. And this time, the question carried real fear. Hei-1 intercepted a priority communication between council members. She listened, her expression darkening. Ji-woo, we have a problem. The council is meeting in emergency session. They want to stop the trials. Well, they can't, Ji-woo said. The trials are sacred. Once started, they must be completed. They're looking for loopholes. They're scared. Let them be scared, Ji-woo replied. They created this situation. They demanded we prove ourselves. Now they have to live with the consequences. Taemin returned to the preparation area. His body was marked with burn scars from Kormoth's energy attacks. Da-un treated them while he sat quietly, drinking water and eating simple food. The council is terrified of you, Kyung-soo told him. I know, Taemin said. Vorath wants to invalidate the trials, claim some kind of rule violation. He won't, Taemin said with certainty. Because if he does, it proves that the council fears humanity. It proves they cannot beat us fairly. Vorath is arrogant, but he's not stupid. He knows what that would mean politically. So what happens next? Da-un asked. Taemin looked at her. And for the first time since the trials began, he smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator who had cornered his prey. Next, they try to kill me, he said simply. They'll make the next trials harder, more dangerous. They'll break their own rules to create trials, designed specifically to stop me. And? Kyung-soo prompted. And I'll win anyway, Taemin said. Because that's what humans do. We face impossible odds, and we find a way. That's our gift. That's our curse. That's what makes us human. Outside, the council argued and schemed. They looked for ways to stop this creature that refused to be stopped. They searched for methods to defeat an opponent who learned from every encounter, but they had already made their mistake. They had judged humanity by appearance. They had assumed that soft skin meant weakness. They had thought that lack of armor meant vulnerability. They were learning the truth now. But the revelation came too late. The trials would continue. And with each trial, Taemin would show them exactly what a human being could do when survival was on the line. Arena World 6 was called the War Games for a reason. It was not about survival or single combat. It was about tactics, strategy, and the ability to face overwhelming numbers. The trial was simple. Defeat your opponents. All of them. At once. Minsok watched from the bridge of the Earth Fleet carrier in nearby space. He was an admiral, gray-haired and experienced, with eyes that had seen too many battles. How many opponents? He asked. 20, Haewon replied over the secure channel. The council changed the rules. Normally it's 5 against 1. They quintupled it. That's not fair modification, Yoonji observed from her psychology station. She was calm and analytical, always watching for the hidden meanings in behavior. That's attempted murder. The council is scared, Jiwoo said, from the planet's surface. They're breaking their own sacred rules because they cannot accept what Taemin represents. And what's that? Minseok asked. Proof that they've been wrong about everything, Jiwoo replied. Wrong about humanity. Wrong about what makes a species strong. Wrong about their entire hierarchy. On Arena World 6, Taemin stood in the center of a massive circular battlefield. Around him, 20 warriors took their positions. They were the best fighters from 20 different species. Each one had won their own trials. Each one was a champion. And all 20 were here to stop one human. Vorath's voice boomed across the arena. Taemin of Earth, you have proven more capable than we anticipated, but this trial will show the truth. That individual skill means nothing against coordinated strength. You face 20 champions. You may choose to surrender now, with honor. Taemin looked up at the council viewing platform. May I speak to my opponents first? The council members exchanged glances. This was unusual, but not forbidden. Very well, Vorath agreed. But it will not save you. Taemin turned to face the 20 warriors surrounding him. They were a terrifying sight. Creatures with 4 arms, with armor like tanks, with claws that could shred steel. Some were twice his height. Some carried weapons that could level buildings. Warriors, Taemin began, his voice carrying across the battlefield. You have been told that this is a test of strength, that numbers will overcome skill. But before we fight, I want to tell you something about my species. We don't care about your species, one warrior shouted. You are about to die. Perhaps, Taemin agreed. But you should know what you're facing. You should understand what humans are. He began to walk slowly in a circle, addressing them all. My people have been fighting for 10,000 years. Not 10 generations. Not 100 battles. 10,000 years of continuous warfare. We fought with sticks and stones, then bronze and iron, then steel and gunpowder, then nuclear weapons that could destroy worlds. The warriors shifted, uncertain. This was not the usual pre-battle talk. We are not the strongest species, Taemin continued. We are not the fastest. We have no armor, no natural weapons, no venom. But we have something else. We have the ability to turn everything into a weapon. A stick becomes a spear. A rock becomes a hammer. The ground beneath our feet becomes a trap. The air we breathe becomes a strategy. Enough talk, another warrior called. You're right, Taemin agreed. This is a battle, and that's what I'm trying to tell you. You evolved on worlds where survival meant being strong. We evolved on a world where survival meant being smart. You grew armor because you needed protection. We learned to make armor because we could think. He stopped walking and stood still, arms at his sides. You look at me and see weakness. I look at you and see 20 different fighting styles I'm about to learn from. You see this battle as 20 against 1. I see it as 20 teachers about to give me a lesson. Yoonji listened from her station, her mind analyzing every word. Brilliant, she whispered. He's getting in their heads, making them doubt, making them think. Will it work? Min-suk asked. Against species that value individual glory? Absolutely, Yoonji replied. He's making them question whether they want to be remembered as one of 20 who defeated a single opponent, or one of 20 who learned something. But not all the warriors cared about such things. The collective had sent their representative. It was a hive mind entity, one body controlled by thousands of linked consciousnesses. It did not doubt. It did not question. It simply acted. Enough, the collective's warrior said in perfect unison from multiple mouths. Words are meaningless. Begin the battle. Vorith raised his hand. Let the trial commence. The battle began not with a coordinated attack, but with chaos. 3 warriors charged immediately, eager for individual glory. Others held back, waiting to see what would happen. The collective's representative moved with eerie precision, perfectly calm. Taemin moved like water. He flowed between the first 3 attackers, using their own momentum against each other. One massive creature's swing missed him and struck its ally instead. Another warrior's charge carried it past Taemin into a third opponent. He's using them against each other, Subin observed from her tactical station on Earth. Classic guerrilla tactics. Don't fight the group, make the group fight itself. The battle became a dance of controlled chaos. Taemin never stayed still. He moved constantly, repositioning, forcing his opponents to get in each other's way. When one attacked, he made sure another was in the path of friendly fire. But the collective's warrior learned quickly. It began directing the others, creating coordination where there had been confusion. Surround it. Cut off escape routes. Attack in sequence. Not simultaneously. The warriors began to work together. The circle tightened. Taemin felt the shift in tactics. He needed to change his approach. He looked at the battlefield. Really looked. Arena World 6 had been designed for war games. That meant obstacles, terrain features, choke points. He ran toward a narrow canyon between 2 rock formations. It's trapped itself, one warrior shouted. But Taemin had chosen the position carefully. In the narrow space, only 2 warriors could attack at once. The others had to wait. He had turned a 20 versus 1 fight into a series of 2 versus 1 encounters. For 3 hours, the battle raged. Taemin fought in the canyon, using every trick he knew. He threw sand in eyes. He used his knife to cut straps on armor, making it hang awkwardly. He struck nerve clusters and joint weak points. He made his opponents exhaust themselves while he conserved energy. His heart rate is dangerously high, Daun reported. He can't sustain this much longer. He doesn't need to, Kyung-soo said, watching the battle with a soldier's eye. Look, the opponents are tiring faster than he is. It was true. The warriors were strong, but they had never fought someone who used their strength against them. They were skilled, but they had never faced someone who adapted to every technique they used. They were determined, but they had never encountered human stubbornness. One by one, they fell. Not dead, Taemin still showed mercy but unconscious or too injured to continue. 5 down, then 8, then 12. The collective's warrior remained, along with 7 others. It studied Tae-min with its multiple minds. You fight well for a primitive creature, but you are bleeding. You are tired. You cannot win. Tae-min was indeed bleeding from a dozen cuts. His breathing was labored. His muscles screamed with fatigue. But he stood straight and met the collective's gaze. I don't have to win, he said. I just have to not lose. And humans are very good at not losing. The final phase of the battle lasted another hour. But now, the remaining warriors were cautious. They had seen their champions fall. They had witnessed this small, soft creature defeat opponent after opponent. Fear was a weapon too, and Tae-min knew how to use it. When the last warrior fell, Tae-min stood alone in the center of the battlefield. He was covered in blood, both his own and others. His body swayed with exhaustion. But he was standing. They were not. The council chamber was silent. Not a single member spoke. They simply stared at the screens, unable to process what they had witnessed. Finally, Vorath found his voice. This is not possible. And yet, it happened. The jellyfish alien replied softly. We have just watched a single being defeat 20 champions, not through superior strength or technology, but through tactics, endurance, and sheer refusal to surrender. The human used guerrilla warfare, another council member observed. It made the battlefield itself a weapon. It turned every disadvantage into an advantage. It demonstrated what humans call asymmetric warfare, a different alien added. This one was a scholar, someone who studied military history. When a weaker force defeats a stronger one through unconventional tactics, humans have 10,000 years of experience with this kind of combat. We do not. Haewon was listening to intercepted communications. Her face was grim. The collective is demanding the council change the final trial. They want to deploy a dreadnought. What's a dreadnought? Jiwoo asked. A war machine designed to exterminate planets, Min-seok answered from his ship. I've seen the intelligence reports. They're enormous, heavily armed, nearly indestructible. They're not meant to fight individuals. They're meant to destroy entire armies. The council won't approve that, Jiwoo said. It would be obvious that they're trying to murder Tae-min. They might not care anymore, Yoonji said quietly. Fear makes people do irrational things, and the council is very afraid right now. On the battlefield, medics came to treat Tae-min. He waved them away from himself. Treat the fallen warriors first, he said. They fought with honor. Fallen warriors. This act, this simple gesture of respect for defeated enemies, was broadcast to the entire council. Some members looked away. Ashamed, others leaned forward, trying to understand this strange creature that showed mercy to those who had tried to kill it. Brekor, who had been defeated in an earlier trial, spoke up. Council members, I must say something. I fought the human. I lost. But I learned. This creature, it does not fight for glory or pride. Honor does not change the threat it represents, Vorath snapped. No. Brekor agreed. But perhaps the threat is not the human. Perhaps the threat is what it reveals about us. That we have grown soft. That we value strength over wisdom. That we have forgotten that survival requires more than armor and weapons. The council erupted into argument. Half wanted to honor the trials and accept humanity's victory. Half wanted to find any excuse to stop Tae-min. In the end, fear won. The council voted to modify the final trial. They would deploy a dreadnought-class war machine. They told themselves it was still fair, still within the rules, but everyone knew the truth. They were breaking the sacred trials because they could not accept being wrong about humanity. Tae-min received the news in his recovery chamber. Kyung-soo told him what he would face next. A dreadnought, Tae-min repeated quietly. A machine designed to destroy planets. You can refuse, Jiwoo said. We can declare the council in violation of the trial rules. We've already proven our point. No, Taemin said. He stood up, ignoring his body's protests. They need to learn this lesson completely. They need to understand that underestimating humanity has consequences, and that when you push a human into a corner, when you make them fight for survival, he looked at each of them. That's when we're most dangerous. The final trial awaited. And the galaxy was about to learn what happened when you gave a human being no choice but to win. Arena World 7 was different from all the others. It was not a planet. It was a massive artificial construct, built specifically for the trials of ascension. The entire structure was the battlefield, a place where the most dangerous trials took place, and in the center of it stood the dreadnought. It was 300 meters tall, a machine of war that looked like a walking fortress. Its armor was composed of alloys that could withstand nuclear weapons. Its weapon systems could level cities in seconds. Energy cannons protruded from dozens of points. Missile pods covered its surface. It had shields that could deflect orbital bombardments. It was designed to fight fleets of warships, not a single person. Taemin stood at the edge of the arena and looked up at it. From this distance, he couldn't even see the top. The machine's footsteps shook the ground like earthquakes. "This is insane," Daun whispered over the comm. "Taemin, you can't fight that thing. It's impossible." "I know," Taemin replied calmly. "Then why are you still standing there?" "Because they need to see what happens when they push too hard. When they try to crush humanity under overwhelming force." He checked his equipment. One combat knife. One environmental suit. Nothing else. They need to learn that impossible just means we haven't figured it out yet. In the council chamber, Ji Woo stood before the assembled members. Her face was calm, but her voice carried steel. "You have broken the sacred trials. This is not a test. This is an execution. The trials state that any combat scenario may be used," Voreth replied, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. The human accepted the challenge. "Because you gave him no choice," Ji Woo's voice echoed through the chamber. "You have revealed yourselves as cowards and oath-breakers. If Taemin dies today, the galaxy will know that the Council fears humanity so much that they would violate their own sacred traditions to stop us." "He won't die," the jellyfish alien said quietly. "Watch." All eyes turned to the screens. The trial began. The dreadnought's sensors locked onto Taemin. Targeting systems activated. Weapons charged. The machine's artificial intelligence calculated the optimal way to eliminate the tiny target in front of it. And Taemin started running. The dreadnought fired. Energy beams capable of destroying buildings lanced through the air. Where Taemin had been a split second before, missiles streaked toward him, their explosions creating craters 50 meters wide. The machine's weapon systems were designed for planetary combat, for hitting large, slow targets. They were not designed to hit a single running human. "He's too small," Subin exclaimed from her tactical station. "The dreadnought's targeting systems are optimized for ships and buildings, a human-sized target moving at full speed. It's like trying to swat a fly with a hammer." Taemin ran in unpredictable patterns. He didn't run in straight lines or regular curves. He changed direction randomly, making himself impossible to predict. It was exhausting, requiring total focus and incredible reflexes. But it worked. The dreadnought adjusted. If precision weapons couldn't hit the target, then area weapons would. It fired cluster munitions that covered entire sections of the arena in explosions. Taemin dove into a crater created by an earlier blast. The explosions washed over the area, but he was below ground level, protected by the machine's own previous attacks. "He's using the battlefield against it," Kyung-soo said with something like awe. "Every crater the dreadnought creates is cover. Every destroyed structure is a hiding place. But Taemin couldn't hide forever. And he couldn't hurt the machine with just a knife. The armor was too thick. The shields were too strong. From the outside, There was no way to win. So Taemin stopped trying to win from the outside. He ran toward the dreadnought. Not away from it, but directly at it. The machine's weapons fired in a continuous barrage, but Taemin was moving too fast, too close. The targeting systems lost track of him as he entered the blind spot directly beneath the machine. "What is he doing?" Vorath demanded. "Why isn't the dreadnought crushing him?" "Because it can't see him anymore," Yunji explained, watching the psychology of the battle unfold. Taemin is doing what humans do best. He's finding the weakness in something that appears invulnerable. Number 5. Close. Number 5. Number 5. NT-12-5. The dreadnought tried to step on him. Its massive foot came down like a building falling from the sky. But Taemin had already moved. He grabbed onto the machine's leg structure as it descended, using the movement itself to lift him up. He began to climb. The dreadnought had never been climbed before. It was designed to destroy threats at range. The concept of something getting on top of it had never been considered. Its weapons couldn't target its own surface without damaging itself. Taemin climbed like humans had climbed for millions of years, finding handholds in the armor plating, using cables and structural elements as grips. His muscles screamed. His fingers bled, but he kept climbing. "This is insane," Minsok whispered from his ship. "He's climbing a 300-meter war machine with his bare hands." "That's not insane," Young-ho corrected. "That's human. We climbed mountains before we had tools. We climbed trees while predators chased us. We climbed cliffs to reach safety. Climbing is in our DNA. End of N. We climbed cliffs. End of N. Climbing is in our DNA. The dreadnought tried to shake him off. It spun, it jerked, it attempted to scrape him against structures. But Taemin held on. Every movement the machine made, he adapted to. Every attempt to dislodge him, he countered. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours of climbing. The council watched in absolute silence. They had sent their most powerful weapon, and a single human was defeating it through sheer determination. Finally, Taemin reached the top. The dreadnought's command core was housed in an armored dome at its peak. It was protected by layers of shielding and armor. No weapon could penetrate it, but Taemin didn't need to penetrate it from the outside. He found a maintenance hatch. They were common on all machines, no matter how advanced. Engineers needed access for repairs. The hatch was locked, but locks were designed to keep out energy weapons and hacking attempts. They weren't designed to stop someone who could use a knife to manipulate the mechanical components. Taemin worked for 20 minutes, his hands steady despite exhaustion. The lock disengaged. The hatch opened. He climbed inside the dreadnought. "This is impossible," Vorath said, but his voice was hollow. He was watching the impossible happen in real time. Inside the machine, Taemin moved through narrow maintenance corridors. The dreadnought's AI tried to stop him with internal defenses, automated weapons, gas attacks, electrical fields, but internal defenses were designed to stop saboteurs with equipment. Taemin was just a man with a knife. He avoided the weapons through agility. He held his breath through the gas. He used his non-conductive suit to bypass the electrical systems, and he kept moving toward the core. The AI tried to communicate. "Human, you cannot destroy me. My core is protected by armor you cannot penetrate. You have only a simple blade." "This is futile." Taemin didn't respond. He just kept moving. He reached the core chamber. The AI was right. The central processor was encased in alloy that his knife couldn't even scratch. But Taemin had learned something during his trials. He had learned that every system, no matter how complex, had a weakness. The core needed cooling. Massive amounts of processing power generated massive amounts of heat. And heat had to go somewhere. Taemin found the cooling system. It was a complex network of pipes and radiators. He began cutting them. Not the armored parts, but the flexible joints were pipes connected to different sections, places where engineers needed to be able to replace components. 1 pipe, 2 pipes, 5 pipes. The dreadnought's temperature began to rise. Warning, the AI announced to itself. Core temperature increasing. Cooling system compromised. Human, stop this. You are damaging valuable military equipment. Taemin cut another pipe. Coolant sprayed everywhere. I am warning you. If the core overheats, the safety systems will shut down all operations. Taemin cut 2 more pipes. Then he spoke for the first time since entering the machine. The dreadnought's temperature continued to climb. The AI tried to compensate, routing power away from weapon systems to cooling. But it wasn't enough. The core was built for efficiency, not for operating with damaged cooling systems. Critical temperature reached, initiating emergency shutdown. The dreadnought began to power down. Its weapons went silent. Its shields collapsed. Its massive frame stopped moving. Taemin climbed out through the same maintenance hatch. He stood on top of the now dormant war machine, 300 meters above the arena floor. He looked up at the council viewing platform, and he smiled. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Some members were shouting in anger. Others sat in stunned silence. A few were nodding slowly, understanding finally dawning. Taemin descended the dreadnought slowly, carefully. His body was at its limit. Every muscle ached. His hands were raw and bleeding, but he made it to the ground. He walked to the center of the arena and stood there, waiting. Vorath finally found his voice. The trial is complete. The human has defeated the dreadnought. No, Taemin said, his voice carrying across the arena through the comm systems. I didn't defeat your machine. I showed you what happens when you underestimate humanity, when you think overwhelming force is the answer to everything. He looked directly at the council. You sent predators, and I outlasted them. You sent champions, and I outthought them. You sent environmental hazards, and I adapted to them. You sent impossible odds, and I found a way. And now you send a machine designed to destroy planets, and I defeated it with a knife and knowledge of basic engineering. Ji-woo stepped forward on the council platform. Taemin has completed the trials of ascension. By your own sacred laws, humanity has earned full council membership. This is outrageous, Vorath roared. We cannot accept. Cannot accept what? Taemin interrupted. Cannot accept that you were wrong? Cannot accept that soft skin and lack of natural weapons don't mean weakness? Cannot accept that humanity survived on a death world and evolved to overcome anything? He pulled out his combat knife, the simple steel blade that had been his only weapon through all the trials. You looked at this and saw primitive technology. I looked at it and saw 10,000 years of human innovation. You looked at me and saw weakness. I looked at you and saw species that never had to learn what we learned. And what did you learn? The jellyfish alien asked softly. Taemin met its gaze. That survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about refusing to quit. It's about adapting when others would give up. It's about finding a way when there is no way. He paused. You judged us by your standards. That was your first mistake. You thought letting me fight would humble humanity. That was your last. Silence fell over the council. And then, one by one, members began to stand. Not Vorath, not at first, but others. The jellyfish alien, Brekor, even the collective's representative. The human speaks truth. The collective said. We have learned more from watching these trials than from any diplomatic conference. Humanity deserves council membership. The vote was called. Despite Vorath's protests, despite the fear and uncertainty, the council voted yes. Humanity was granted full membership, with all rights and privileges. And, as Ji-woo had demanded, veto power. Taemin left the arena to medical care. But before the transport took him away, Minseok's fleet decloaked. Dozens of human warships appeared in orbit around the station. They had been there all along, waiting, watching. The council members saw them and understood. Humanity had sent one man not because he was expendable, but because he was sufficient. If the council had killed him, violated the sacred trials, those ships would have been their answer. But it hadn't come to that. Taemin had won. And in doing so, he had changed the galaxy's understanding of what humanity was capable of. Months later, Young Ho taught a class of alien students about human biology. They sat in nervous attention as he explained about persistence hunting, about endurance running, about sweat and adaptation, and the stubborn refusal to give up that had allowed humans to survive on Earth. Are humans really that dangerous? One student asked nervously. Young Ho smiled. Only if you make us be. Humans prefer peace. We prefer cooperation. But we survived millions of years on a planet that tried to kill us every day. And that survival instinct is still there, waiting, ready to activate when necessary. The students looked terrified. In another office, Eunji wrote her final report on the trials. She concluded, "The council feared our weakness. Now they fear our strength. In time, perhaps they will simply know us as equals. But that will take time. Fear does not disappear overnight." And in a quiet apartment on Earth, Taemin sat by a window and looked up at the stars. His body bore scars from the trials. His hands still ached. But he had done what needed to be done. He had shown the galaxy that humanity belonged among the stars. He had taught them that underestimating humans was dangerous. He had proven that when you push a human being far enough, when you give them no choice but to fight, they will find a way to win. The trials had ended. Humanity's place in the galaxy had been secured, and the council had learned their lesson. Never misjudge a human's weakness as inability, and never, ever, let them into your trials unless you're prepared for them to succeed. Because humans don't quit. They never quit. That was their weakness. That was their strength. And that was what made them human.